Chapter 43. Taking it back to the streets. I can feel it in the air. Yeah, it's getting closer. I wasn't down with all that pretty happy-go-lucky shit. In March of 1997, Puff Daddy suffered through the murder of his man, the notorious B.I.G., and then went straight to the top of the music charts. Suge Knight and Death Row had stepped the game up the year before when Tupac sold a couple million copies of a double album and proved to everyone that a real hip hop artist could sell like crazy. Before Pac, it was thought that you had to be MC Hammer to sell that many units. But then Puff did even better than that. That summer, he released his own album that had everyone in the fucking world singing and dancing. I guess not far from a Hammer move anyway. My man had the radio on lock, the clubs on fire, had people thinking that hip hop was all about bright lights and shiny suits, and smiled all the way to the bank. X, on the other hand, still lived in the dark. I never saw any bright lights around me. Nothing about my Timbs and hoodie was shiny. I couldn't hate on what Puff was doing, but I wasn't with it. It just wasn't me. But I also wasn't stupid. I knew that I needed a deal. I had a kid. It felt like every fucking label in the world had already dissed me. All the pups were already in the game, and I was still broke. But I needed to make sure that Leo and Def Jam were committed to taking hip hop back to the streets where it belonged. If they wanted to do some other shit, then well, they could give me some money. But I made a promise to myself that I would not take my audience to the wrong place. I didn't want I didn't wait all this time to get put on to sell myself out now. So when Leo said that he didn't want to change anything about me, that all he wanted to do was find me as large of an audience as possible for my music, and in fact, taking it back to the streets was going to be the idea behind how they wanted to market and promote me. He said all the right things. DMX, Rough Riders, Def Jam. Just let me do my motherfucking thing. Chapter 44. Who is that last guy? Niggas will never win. This whole rap game is mine. As hot as you've ever been. I was that in 89. Toward the end of 1997, some of the songs that I had done guest verses on were starting to get played on the radio. There was the Lox's Money, Power, and Respect, LL Cool J's 4321, Cameron's Pull It, and Mace's 24 Hours to Live. You can do better than that, Puff said to me when I was in the studio laying the vocals to the closing verse of 24 Hours. That made me mad as a motherfucker, but he wanted a rap without too many curses, so I wrote another one for him right there. 24 hours left until my death, so I'm going to waste a lot of lives, but I'll cherish every breath. I know exactly where I'm going, but I'm going to send you there first, and with the shit I'll be doing, I'm going to send you there worse. Who is that last guy? Angie Martinez, the afternoon DJ on Hot 97, said on the air when she first heard the song. At the time, Puff was actually trying to sign me to his label. He kept telling Wah that he would offer me double whatever Def Jam's money was and give me some more dough for myself. I guess he didn't think that I was too hard anymore, probably because he saw the reaction of his own crowd. It was Puffy's No Way Out tour at Madison Square Garden in Manhattan. Mace had asked me to do my 24 Hours to Live verse on stage with him in the Lox. I only had 12 bars to do, but the garden was sold out and I wanted to try to show everybody in that audience exactly what X was about. So I put on a green army fatigue outfit that had all these grenades hanging off the coat, a pair of black boots, and fit this ill gas mask on top of my head. DMX was ready for war. See, people had heard me spit on a couple of songs by now, but they hadn't seen me yet, so it was only natural for them to wonder. Well, we like what you're saying, homie, but how are you going to move on stage? When I got out there and felt the energy of 20,000 people, it was like nothing I had ever felt before. The audience loved every word that I said and cheered for me when I was done like I was the star of the show. Oh man, I could get used to this. I've been living with a curse and now it's all about to end. But before I go, say hello to my little friend. But I got to make it right, reconcile with my mother, try to explain to my son, tell my girl that I love her. The next night, I was riding in a van on my way to the garden for the second show, and I heard Hot 97 Give Me More Love on the radio. Yo, that new guy DMX did his thing on stage last night. I was amped. Yeah, baby, we about to blow up. I started screaming to Tashira when I got back home. It's about to go down. Boo Boo couldn't stop smiling. Chapter 45, Where My Dog's At. The biggest song of my life started off as a freestyle. It was called Get At Me, Dog. Like Ron G, DJ Clue was a mixtape DJ who had a huge following in the streets. He had gotten a good response from putting this song I did with the Lots called Niggas Done Started Something on a few of his tapes, but was talking shit to Y one day about why I always rhymed last on every song that I was on. Just like Gotti knew better with me and Jay-Z on Time to Build, producers still couldn't put me in the middle of a song. I was so aggressive and rhymed so hard that it would have been detrimental to whoever came after me. It was a given that if I was on a joint, I was the closer. But Clue wanted to be hard headed. I think I want to hear your boy rhyme first, he used to tell Y. Let's see what he can do then. Y knew all he had to do was tell me that someone was doubting me, and I would get pumped. Okay, Clue thinks I'm a fucking joke, huh? I wrote the Get At Me Dog freestyle the day I went to Valhalla Hospital to get the wires taken off my jaw. I had brought a pen and a pad with me to write in and was glad that I did, because when the nurse told me that after 4 months of suffering, they couldn't take my appliances off that day because my doctor was on vacation, I suddenly had a lot of frustration to unload. I'm the type to sit back and look at shit because crooked shit gets me amped. Grease did the beat a few days later. He chopped up this old BT Express record that he got from PK and turned it into a wailing, bass heavy track that just made me want to flow for days. Bring all them pretty niggas thinking they gritty to one city. Let me show them niggas shitty. It's a pity, but for 50, a motherfucker could get a bullet to hum him. Put the gun to him. Hit him with something that come to him. But it run through him. Look what I done to him. No more smiles. Got the whole top half of his head running wild. But you don't hear me though, so I turn off the lights. We can take it to the streets, dog. Turn off the mic. The rhyme showed Clue exactly what I was made of, but more importantly, the Get At Me Dog freestyle marked the first time that I ever growled and balked on a record. If you want war, then you want more. Then you can stand. And this 4-4 will leave you with your dick in the sand. Who's the man? Now you cats know for real. Get at me, dog. What's the deal? I didn't plan to bark like it. I didn't even really think about it before it came out of my mouth. I just identified so much with my pits, what they stood for and how they got down, that the sound came out of me naturally. It wasn't a gimmick. That growl and bark was a form of expression for me. It communicated how I was feeling. Little did I know that it was about to be a bark heard around the world. The Clue freestyle hit the streets hard, and once Def Jam heard what I did, they immediately had an idea for a first single. They thought I should turn the Get At Me Dog phrase into a hook for a whole song. The Locks were on the freestyle as well. Gotti's boy Ja Rule was supposed to have done a part but couldn't get his lyrics ready in time. But Def Jam wanted me to do 3 whole verses on my own. If I could make that happen, I would have a first single that they just knew would go crazy in the clubs and blow up on radio. I didn't want to do the record. I thought it would be meaningless. Why would my new label want to put out a song with me talking shit when I had so many other songs that actually said something? Didn't they realize that I've talked shit for 10 years already? But Gotti helped convince me. Dog, it's only one song. And one night, me, him, and Grease went to the studio, got Chic from the Locks to do the hook, and flipped Get At Me Dog into a full-length single. What must I go through to show you shit is real? And I ain't never really gave a fuck how niggas feel. I rob and I steal. Not 'cause I want to, 'cause I have to. Y'all niggas wanna be killers? Get at me, dog. The record exploded. The song was instantly the rawest cut on the radio. DJ Funkmaster Flex broke the joint nationally. He played it over and over every night on Hot 97. One night, folks told me that he played it 6 or 7 times in a row for a half hour straight. Gotti said that he never saw a song take off that fast, never felt the sound of hip hop change so completely overnight, but he just knew that hip hop kids had been yearning for an underdog. Street niggas from coast to coast was starving for someone whose music was talking to them on their own level, not from miles away in $1 million house driving a fancy car. Where my dogs at? That was the call. It was in the street, it was in the clubs. Everywhere I went, I heard it blaring. I actually didn't realize just how crazy folks were getting over the record until I did a show in the Bronx. And when that beat came on, there was complete pandemonium. Everybody got me so wild that night, I actually jumped into the crowd and got mobbed by a few hundred people. Serves me right for watching too many white boy concerts on TV, thinking that's what you do when fans are going crazy over you in the club. Then some chick scratched a hole in my back with one of her nails, and the club security rushed me out the back door thinking that I got stabbed when they saw me bleeding so much. Of course, I ran right back inside. Get at me, dog was the new anthem. Where my dogs at? We right here, dog. Chapter 46, Official Member of Society. The success of my recording career wasn't real for me until I got my first check. Having Get At Me Dog be a big record wasn't enough to kill all of my doubts about what was happening because I had hit records. I had hit records in the street before I knew I could still get jerked. But when I saw that first money, then I believed at least something was different this time. Checks are usually small green pieces of paper. But when I got my first check from Def Jam, it was a huge monster joint, about 3 times the size that I was used to. I didn't think it was real. How are they going to have me go into a bank with this bozo looking check? Luckily, Uncle Ray had already hooked me up with the driver's license and the social security card, so I didn't have to cash a $15,000 check in the check cashing place. I remember we had to run back and forth from City Hall to motor vehicles a few times just to get me all of the paperwork I needed to become an official member of society. I never gave a fuck about ID before, but I guess that's what you needed in this world to be considered human. The first thing I did with the money was buy a little gold chain for myself and a brand new pair of Reebok DMXs that had just came out. Then I bought a $2,500 used Honda Civic from this guy on Ravine. It was only worth about half that, but I was just so open over having money and not having to steal the car that I paid him what he wanted and brought the rest of the dough back home to Tashira. When Get At Me Dog came out, Tashira and I were still living in Mulford. It was a fun time though because everybody in the projects was happy for me and I finally had a hit song on the radio and they were very eager to be friendly and show me love. Every night, folks would crowd around me on the front steps of the building to hear about all the things that I was doing. Yo, Spark, Shark. Folks would call over to my window to see if I was home and wanted to smoke a blunt. I was still writing in the apartment every day, and the night I wrote Look Through My Eyes, there were actually about 5 or 6 people chilling outside my window watching me come up with every line. When I finished, everybody let out a collective cheer. But after about a month of smiles, Tashira and I started to recognize how phony and extra everyone was being. It bothered me that most of the people that were becoming so friendly with us now never cared about us before. None of these niggas had ever asked to smoke with me before I got a big record deal. No one was stopping by my crib just to say hi before Flex was blowing me up on the radio. Hey D, why don't you come upstairs for a minute? Random chicks started to ask me all the time on my way home. Bitch, you weren't inviting me upstairs a month ago. I couldn't ride with that one. So shortly after I got that first bit of money, Tashira and I left the projects and moved to New Jersey. I was sad because I learned almost everything I knew from Yonkers. And for that, even though I didn't know everyone in YO, I loved everyone in YO from the bottom of my heart. They saw me grow. They saw me change. And that was some special shit. But folks were getting too ridiculous. So late one night, Tashira and Ray just got all of our clothes together and got out of Dodge. They didn't need a van because I told them to leave as many things as possible. Tashira wasn't so thrilled with that idea. Earl, I paid for all this furniture. But if we were going to leave my home for good, I wanted us to get a clean start. I see you, an old lady called out to the two of them as they drove away. And after 27 years, my time as a resident of Yonkers, New York was over. Chapter 47, In the Lab. After the Get At Me Dog freestyle, it didn't take long for the streets to start anticipating a whole album from me. So it was good that ever since Leo's night at Powerhouse, me and Grease had become more connected. I would see him there all the time and we'd lay tracks down together. There was never a lot of extra bullshit involved. It was always just, "What's up, my nigga? You ready?" Then we'd get in and get dirty and make some memorable songs. I liked his beats because they were never just beats. There were layers to his tracks. He threw different instruments and sounds into the mix to say different things. Even the joints that I didn't want to fuck with, the ones that weren't my style, were still good, quality music. The two of us had actually gone down to Atlanta together for a little while to record. I didn't have any Def Jam money at the time, so me and Grease just turned the basement where we were staying into our own private studio with an MP sampler, a pair of headphones, some little speakers, and an amp, and banged out a bunch of ideas. No engineers, no nothing. At the time, Wah and everybody else were busy with the locks. So even though it felt like niggas dropped us on some stranded shit, when we were down there having a call back home and beg for dough, as usually, I kind of liked the isolation. And after a couple of weeks, I had written most of the lyrics that I ended up using on my first album. Back in Yonkers, PK had also been spending a lot of hours in Powerhouse coming up with hot tracks. I was also very possessive about the music that I felt I could rhyme best to, and I knew that there was always a lot of competition among the pups for PK's beats. So I made sure that if I went in the studio and heard him playing something that I liked, he put my name on it right away. PK always held me down by making sure that no one else tried to write to it. Checking on what PK was up to a couple of times in Powerhouse was how I ended up with the beats for Stop Being Greedy and How's It Going Down. I always came up with the hook before the lyrics. Songs were just much easier to write when I had a chorus in my head because once I knew what the theme was and the meaning of the whole piece was, then I just had to tell the story. And I had stories for days. So, with Grease and PK both giving me crazy tracks and Gotti helping me put everything together as an album, I felt that I was ready to make it happen whenever Def Jam was. There was just one more place I had to take it, one particular story that I really needed to tell. I needed to talk about the devil. Why is it every move I make turns out to be a bad one? Where's my guardian angel? Need one. Wish I had one. I called him Damien. Damien, I'm right here, shorty, and I'ma hold you down. You tryna fuck all these bitches? I'ma show you how. But who? Names D like you? But my friends call me Damien, and I'ma put you into something about this game we in. You'll need to take it there. Then you'll be the hottest nigga ever living. That's a given. You'll see. I didn't know how I could bring him across in the song. Didn't know how to articulate his presence. Then I just opened the door to my soul, and he was right there. He was right fucking there. I got some weed. Go ahead, smoke it. Go ahead, drink it. Go ahead and fuck shorty. You know I can't keep a secret. You know I can keep a secret. He came out in a garbled, slightly high-pitched voice, and as I expected, he was up to no good. I'm about to have you driving, probably a Benz, but we gotta stay friends. Blood out, blood in. A deal with the dark was one that I had made many times, whether it was something that I needed to get out of hunger or something that I wanted to get out of temptation throughout my life. I agreed to do dirt and suffer the consequences. Even though I was beginning to understand the difference between doing wrong and being wrong, the repercussions of rolling with the devil were always severe. Now I'm ready to chill, but you still want me to kill? Damien, look at what I did for you, dog. Come on, keep it real. All right, fuck it. I'ma do it. Who is it this time? Hey yo, remember that kid Sean you used to be with in '89? Nah, that's my man. I thought it was your man. But yo, that's my nigga. Hey yo, who's your biggest fan? You can do it or give me your right hand. That's what you said. I see now there's nothing but trouble ahead. Earl wrote that song, not D or X, but Earl. This was his battle with the devil, a battle that each and every day I tried so desperately to help him win. Earl was winning, I felt it, but I couldn't ever stop fighting. That night, I decided to call my album It's Dark and Hell is Hot. It was the perfect title. The darkness described my biggest challenges. Hell described the reality of the world that I was living in. After all these years, was the world finally ready to hear what I was trying to say? I was starting to see some signs, but I really didn't know yet. I just knew that I was trying my best to pour 27 years of my life into the words of 16 songs and a prayer. Chapter 48, Belly Up. One night, Gotti brought me to meet a friend of his named Al Monday. Gotti said a video director he knew named Hype Williams was making a film loosely based on Brown's life and wanted me to talk with him for a minute to see if I had a feel for the guy. After a few minutes, I told Gotti that while I didn't know his friend personally, he was like one of the many characters that I crossed paths with in the hood, and because of that, I knew who he was. I could read his behavior and understand why he did the things he did. I didn't know that Hype was stuck without anyone to play this role in his film, or that it was a couple of weeks before filming was supposed to begin. But after Gotti's recommendation and a subsequent audition, I was cast to be the lead role in Belly. It was the first time that I had ever thought about acting. I liked being in front of the camera, and even though Hype had us rehearse too many fucking times, and the baby oil he had us shining ourselves up with got real aggravating after a few days, I enjoyed it. Uncle Ray still had his job in the prison, but had slowly taken on the role of my manager, and so it became his responsibility to get me up in the mornings to go to set. Hype always had a 7 a.m. call, and that was never easy. Ray had to fight with me all the time to get out of bed, but Belly allowed me to lose myself for a minute and think about someone else's life struggles. And hanging out with Nas and Method Man all day was a lot of fun. They were successful rappers, but they were also real niggas, and that was still the most important thing to me. Hype did do me dirty one time, though. For my sex scene, he cleared the set, but put monitors all over the house that we were filming in. Everywhere I looked, there were girls sitting up in front of the screens watching. Even the woman who owned the place showed up on set that day. I couldn't do anything about it, so I just told Hype to keep the room that I was in real warm so that my balls wouldn't shrivel up. Keep this motherfucker hot, Hype. Don't have me looking like a little man on film. I didn't like Shorty's body double too much either. The scene called for me to pretend to have sex with her from behind, and I told her beforehand how I was going to do it. I'm gonna throw your legs up, pump you a couple of times, then flip you over dumb fast and hit it from the back. Well, just don't put your tongue in my mouth, she answered. Now that was stupid. What are you, the fucking exorcist or something? How am I gonna put my tongue in your mouth from behind? After the scene, there was a lot of blushing going down from a lot of the women that were watching. My time spent in jail didn't make me self-conscious at all about being naked in front of people. But I was glad Tashira stayed home that day because I wouldn't have wanted Boo Boo to get mad. During the final week of filming the movie, I got a One Love Boomer tattoo on my back in memory of my dog. I had thought about doing it ever since he died. People asked me why I made it so big, why I had the design stretched from shoulder to shoulder. But I just knew whoever asked me that didn't understand the relationship I had with that dog. They didn't understand the relationship I had with all of my dogs. And they definitely didn't know Boomer. Boomer was nothing less than the greatest friend I ever had. And the tattoo was my way of paying him permanent tribute. I wanted the Get At Me Dog video to look as different as possible. Everyone agreed that it should have the exact opposite feeling of the super clean grass is so green, sky is so blue, multicolored look that Puffy and others had made the norm with the Biggie and Mace joints. If I was serious about taking it back to the streets, then my first video needed to look as dirty and grimy as possible. There would be no iced out watches on my side of the world. So first we decided to film it in the tunnel during a regular party night. The tunnel was Funkmaster Flex's home base, infamous for attracting the most street, ghetto hip hop crowd in New York. And when Hype took his cameras in there that Sunday to do the video, the whole club went nuts. Folks were everywhere, wilding out. It felt like a riot was about to jump off, but it was all about the music. I had to perform the song about 12 fucking times, and every single time the crowd rocked with me. It was hectic. I was sweating like crazy. It was hard to breathe, but this was my element. To rock a club like the Tunnel with my own song, with my own people in the audience, this is what I had waited for my whole life. Darren, Wah, Grease, Gotti, everybody was in full dog mode because it was going down. We could feel it. I was actually about to fly. When Hype put a black and white strobe effect over the final cut of the video, Get At Me Dog looked even more ridiculous. There was nothing else like it on TV. It had a realness, a recklessness to it that fit the aggression of the song and represented what I was about. I loved it. But when MTV refused to play the video, Get At Me Dog also gave me my first lesson in big music politics. MTV said that the song was too violent and would incite a riot. The phrase, "Where my dog's at," was an example of how the lyrics were gang related. Huh? When you got a song called Smack My Bitch Up in heavy rotation at the same time? Smack My Bitch Up is a direct and disrespectful threat. But I'm the artist you're scared of? MTV said they would only play Get At Me Dog if I re recorded the super clean version of the song. Gotti tried to get me to do it one night in the studio, but I didn't care about the larger audience that I could get from being on MTV, and I refused to let anyone try to get me to compromise my music. I played pool all night instead and never redid it. Needless to say, MTV never played the video. I'm glad all the other stations held me down.